What's going on there, everyone? And here's Drake. I'm back with another miniatures kind of overview. Now, today we're going to talk about the game known as HeroClix. That sort of thing. Well, I think it's part of the HeroClix brand, but it is called Mage Knight. These guys are, WizKid made products. I mean, if you look at the bottom, they are products of WizKids, and they were 2001, so I don't know if they're still being made or not. But if you're looking for interesting miniatures, ow, that spike on that tail actually got hurt. But if you're looking for miniatures for your game that you're looking for something unique and different, I think you might want to look into these. Now, many people sell them new in the box for like around 20 something bucks, and that's for something like this, a dragon that is actually very nicely detailed. This is the Polar Ice Dragon. They do have point values on them for ancient, mature, and young. Not really sure how the click stuff per dial. I mean, I don't understand the dialing system and stuff. If you ever really want to rebase these, really just grab them and you just yank them off. They usually snap right off. They're not impossible to repaint. I've done that with some of them. For instance, basing them is not that hard. You can easily just get some cheap little bases like Evermodel bases or WizKid bases if you can find them nowadays. Or for some reason, it'd be hard to find. But they do come with some interesting characters. I mean, for instance, does this one have a name on it? No. Sorry, I thought I had a name on it. Oh, wait, no, there it is. We have a Draconum, Mortis Draconum, which if you were going to use as like a Draconian, that would be pretty useful since there's not really a lot of Draconian minis out there. And you get dragons, always dragons. They have tons of cool stuff. Like you got riders, so you need some mount riders, some cool creatures you could make from a rider. If you just like, oh man, the beast itself looks cool, but the rider itself is boring. That's how I got like an orc on a mechanical horse, which I'll show these under the scope in a minute. Like you get a lot of cool stuff. And like they're just different. Now a lot of these I've noticed they seem to a lot of people sell like the mounted warriors, like the warriors on the back of a horse or some type of animal or even a machine to skeleton. But sometimes you get lucky, like I did, where I got a big giant here, and this giant is actually called the Iron Rain Hill Giant, and then he has point values for ancient, mature, and Kitling. I don't know what that is, but he is 2002, so he's probably the newest of these all. And, they have these click bases where you click them. But this guy, I really don't see a point in rebasing, only because he's on a huge base. It is huge size. And this guy has got a lot of cool aspects. Let's get him under the camera. We'll take a close look. So, for instance, here's the Iron Hill Giant. As you can look at him, he's pretty cool looking. Now, this giant isn't a normal giant. This is actually more of a servitude giant. As you can see on his back, he carries an engine, most likely probably like some steam engine, for his dwarven gunners and dwarven rider who sit on his head and shoulders. Now that's actually really cool. I did like this miniature for a lot of good reasons. I got him surprisingly good cheap on eBay when I grabbed this guy. He was only like, I think, $5, which isn't too bad for a mini of this quality. Like he's got a lot of detail. He has tattoo marks. He's got chains, ropes, a lovely giant axe. He even has some shoes on, surprisingly. And he has some cool like accoutrements, such as the dwarves with their full armor decked out with the gunners on the side. So say this would be an interesting dwarven war enemy you could face. Or, well, I mean, you could say dwarves. They might actually, I mean, they look like dwarves. We could easily just say they're people, too. They are some pretty big, chunky, metal armored characters. So you could say they're humans, too. It doesn't really matter. You could just use as a hill giant battle beast, war beast. You could use them for that kind of thing. Since giants are almost siege beasts themselves, this would be pretty cool. I mean, what would make your characters more confused that when a giant hill giant who walks towards you, who's actually probably taller than most hill giants and probably more like the original hill giants actually looked like before they started getting a lot heftier. And, now he's got guns and blasters. He's got the rider on top who's got like chains hooked up to his eyebrows to control him. Like, it's just a unique model to look at. And I think if you put them on a table, most people are going to stop and kind of give them that look over where they go, whoa. Like, there's going to be things they're going to keep looking at and go like, okay, didn't notice he's being controlled. Or, oh, didn't notice those are gunners. Didn't notice it's like a steam engine on his back. Like, that's really cool. And that's what this game kind of offers. And these Mage Knight minis were being sold for cheap. They're kind of being sold a little bit more expensive nowadays because people kind of go, man, whether WizKids makes them or not anymore, they're like, these are pretty cool. They're unique and different. I mean, let's take a look at some of these dragons, for instance. Now here we have the Fire Dragon, and as you can see, he is a very big beast. He would definitely be probably an ancient class dragon, because of how large his body is, or at least adult. I mean, like, this is just a huge monster. Now, most of the dragons from the Mage Knight do have that same exact tail design, where it's like a tail with spikes going down to the body, which actually is also very much the same. The wings also hit very much the same. It's just the head part that really changes. Like, the head is the real big changer in between the dragons. Because, I mean, like, even the belly scales are really the same with just different paint jobs. Once you get to the neck, that joint, the neck, is where they put on a different head. So for the fire dragon, you have this big goofy head. For other dragons, they have multiple different styles. And then they, of course, change the paint jobs based to match the dragons. For instance, here's the Polar Ice Dragon, another very cool looking dragon that has a lot of cool detail. This one, in my opinion, works really well for D&D, only because he has those really nice draconian features that you would look for. Like, you know, he has the head, the serpentine body, the giant wings, the giant, like, snake tongue, the eyes that aren't so gigantic, and that giant head like the fire dragon, but he has more of that slender, almost sort of like European mixed with Asiatic dragon, just enough. It works. Now, being a polar ice dragon, I think, could be fine. Or you could use this really as any standard dragon. You could use like a shadow dragon, or some type of dark dragon, or a deep dragon. Whatever you really want to use it for, they're pretty good stand-ins, because they're the fire dragon would be good for more of a red dragon or some type of lava dragon, but, you know, obviously this guy would be a little bit more free for different use. You could use it for ice or darkness to even light. We do even have a light dragon. Now, here we have the light dragon, and these guys are, I mean, as you can guess, I think they actually did do that in the release of the Draconomicon, as well as other things. There are light dragons now, or in the Kobold Press books. You do get light dragons. They're not impossible, but, I mean, this guy has such an aggressive face for a light dragon. This is probably more on the idea that this dragon is more of a I live alone, but the giant tongue in his mouth is kind of cool. That sticks out of the end. I kind of wish his teeth sculpt worked better with it, but, I mean, this is still a cool sculpt. Once again, you do notice the very similarities in the body size and the tail, how all of them go up the same way, how they all do that, and how his head is literally the only difference, because the wing design is the same and all that. It literally comes down to just his head being different. Now, granted, that means if you ever say bought a dragon that was really beat up and not great, but you had one that was in great shape, and say the head was good and you wanted to save it, you could always take the head off the other one and then paint it up to match, or, you know, whatever you really wanted to do. But let's get on to the one dragon that I don't have wings for, but I actually kind of like that he doesn't. Now, that's like a terrifying serpentine venomous dragon, and I love his design. He's got that definite sort of lengthy serpentine body, the long tail, the long head, the big head in the end too, like another chunky head, but it's because of its like very thin profile and the swirling tongue and the long horns, he works out really good. Now, I don't have his wings. He didn't come with them when I ordered this sort of lot that had him in it. Kind of a sad thing, too, because I really wished he sort of did. But now that I look at it, I really could just take the wings off any of these dragons and then just shove them on his back if I really wanted to. But I mean, most likely the polar dragons would be the ones I would use for cross-compatibility. But, I mean, he's really cool. I kind of like him as more of a sea dragon. Anyway, so I might actually try to green stuff some fins on his back to kind of give him more of that oceanic serpentine dragon effect. And maybe even like kind of do some finning between his toes to give him more of a finned body. Fin accents all over. And heck, I'll even probably try to make his tail more fin-like instead of actually all the spikiness. Like, I'll try to maybe heat them up and then try to bend them and do something. So, I don't know. Maybe this will be a project later. Make a serpentine aqua dragon. But in the end, though, it's great to know that you can get dragons from another place that are huge and big and are definitely going to be something your group's going to have to face. That's going to be a challenge. That you don't have to always go to the WizKids main source of like the D&D or Pathfinder, and you can get them for not too bad of a price. I mean, they're way cheaper than most of the premium miniatures. But also on top of that, let's take a look at some of the riders, for instance, of this sort of thing I'm talking about. So here we have some of the riders I was talking about. Like, these are, for instance, I like to call them turtle riders. They ride these giant sort of spiked turtle monsters. And we have two orc-like creatures, or one that's more goblin-like them, one big sort of orc. Or you can have them be like goblin turtle riders, something like that. I mean, like, they have a unique style. Now, really, I didn't do much of these guys. I hit them with just a simple little bit of wash to kind of get some more of the crevices to show through on their paint jobs. And they kind of really turned out pretty good. I can't really say that I have anything else I really want to do to them. I could paint them, I could take them apart and turn them just into big turtle monsters, but then I'm like, they have little satchels on the back, and that's a lot of cutting and green stuffing, but keep some riders. I mean, it makes it unique for your goblins when they have these high AC level riders because they're on turtleback, and the turtles block a lot of shots with these spike defenses and getting to the rider, which is hard to get past those spikes in the shell. I think it'd be really unique and different to make your characters not used to the standard old goblin enemy of like, oh, some goblins charge you, you beat them down, and it's not a fight. Now, here's some minis that didn't really require too much other than base change, but except for that one there with the orc. Now, the orc actually was a different one, but we'll get to that in a moment. So these are metal horse riding warriors. They came with 2 orcs, 2 of these long spear wielding, or sorry, lance wielding warriors with some like, I guess you'd call them size. And then they came with 2 like sort of gunners. They just had like pistols, which works fine because in D&D pistols are a thing. And the dwarves boomsticks there that they hold are also a thing. So, I mean, like, this works pretty well. I actually did use them in a little one-off campaign for our group, and it was interesting. The group was like, how do we operate them? And they wanted to call them coin-operated horses. Oh, dear goodness. They didn't think that through. As I said, you do know you don't have enough money to operate them at all. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, you don't know how much gold it takes or how much silver, and you guys are pretty poor. And they're like, oh, crap. We're not going to be able to use these horses after we defeated these guys. But we also have the orc sort of boss there. He rides on the front. Now, he actually originally was on top of another monster, but the monster was so cool and aggressive looking that I wanted the monster to be his own thing. I didn't want him to be attached to the orc as, like, you know, part of what makes him a creature. So I cut him. So I basically snapped him off the top of the back, which luckily he had a very simple point. And I actually took the rider originally on that one because the rider on there was actually all beaten up. So I took him off and replaced him. And now we have an orc leader with his shield leading his squad of dwarf and human infantrymen on the back of his mechanical horse construct cavalry. So it's really kind of cool. And speaking of that, we also have the beast itself that I used from the orc to make this creature his own monster. This was like originally a mount, but as you can see there on the back, there's just a slight little tiny little dip in like one of his back pieces. And I used some green stuff to fill that in and then just kind of popped it with some clay tools to make it have a little texture. And in the end, we have us now a lovely drake or a dinosaur or whatever I really want to use it for, or even just like a demonic beast. It works really cool. And I love his design. It just looks like that creepy monster you don't really want to mess with. But when you do, those snaggly teeth are going to definitely give you a good bite. It's a cool creature. And I mean, honestly, that's the kind of stuff you get. These old school monsters that have that old school grunginess, that like darkened look that you kind of look at and go, man, we don't get that much anymore. It's like, dang right you don't. Look how nasty this boy is. Like, goodness gracious. And lizard folk weren't left out of this game. As you can see, here's a lizard folk kind of man riding on the back with his blue plumage. The other one has yellow plumage, and this one, though, is holding a blow dart. That's why I thought he was more interesting to show. He rides on the back of some weird, like, wolf-like boar monster. It has, like, the tri-hooved feet with, like, a sort of boar-like face mixed with wolf. But he has that cool blow dart, and he's even got, like, the puffy cheeks. He's doing the whole as he's about to fire his darts. So it's really kind of cool if you want some lizard folk that have some unique characteristics. There were other ones I had that rode on the back of snakes, and those are actually at the moment being used, so they're not really available for me to use for the video. Shameful, but oh well. I mean, which they are the same type of models, but they had clubs and shields, and they were yellow and blue again, and they were on the back of giant snake monsters that had that dark snake, old school snake look. But not just lizard folk are getting some cool mounts. We also get some other races getting some sweet mounts that you might not even think are normally their choice. For instance, we have this elf rider with his sword on the back, and there is another one of this. Basically, the other one's just got blue colorments, and instead he's got a bow. But this is like the elf warrior riding on the back of some type of lizard runner beast, like kind of a big, aggressive, I want to say like iguana monster. It makes me feel like it's an iguana monster, iguana dinosaur. He's got this big clubby tail, the big green body, that old school freaking sculpt. The old school sculpt of this I like on the monster. I mean, if he didn't have a saddle on him, I would have been tempted to snap one of these guys off just to turn it into a beast its own, because like it's just cool looking. And I did do a little bit of some skeletal bone on those like horns, just because they were a little off. Now he's got like more of a actual crest on his head. He's got some spikes on his face, you know, that kind of stuff. A little bit of touch on some of the talons on the tail. And in the end, not much, just a little touch-ups, and maybe on the rider itself. And in the end, we get us a nice, cool, elven, I don't know, Grug rider or something like that, some big old reptilian beast rider, and it's just kind of cool and it's different to see an elf riding on something that isn't a horse or some like stag or something like that. So it's kind of cool, and I do like it. It had just such a unique personality. I kind of really was glad I got these guys. But not just the elves get like their own dinosaurian looking monster to ride. This little goblin or orc, whatever you'd rather have him be, also is riding on the back of some dinosaurian creature with its own claws. That's right, it has battle claws and a little bit of armor plating, and it's very skinny. I'd probably call this something like a night, like a cave skink or like a cave raptor, where it's like, it's very scrawny because they don't eat much. They fast a lot. Their tail holds most of their protein, like most reptiles. Maybe maybe not going as a raptor. Maybe, like I said, the reason I went with a skink is because it has more of the reptilian lizard features. And then it's like, well, what about its claws? Well, like there's the orcs of the caves love to get these battle claws on them to make their hands way more aggressive for combat, as those small little fingers they have don't do as much as giant, deadly iron battle claws. And it's like, what about the blue hair? Well, they live in the dark cave, so their color of their hair really, the color of the, say, specialized feathering on their back really never needed to be any special color because of this. Now, I did get two of these guys as well, which is cool, and I think these would be nice to help bump up a goblin unit in their cave as scouts that go around, and maybe this is what they ride on to sniff and investigate the cave when they hear noise or to keep lookouts. Like, it'd be kind of cool. Well, moving on to another type of class, we get to the Undead Riders. These are very unique as they kind of come in two styles. One is a Reaper-esque character, and the other one is a Banshee holding a heart. I do have a couple of the riders of the Banshees holding hearts, and I only have one of the skeleton riding the horse. I do have a skeletal Reaper man riding on something else. We'll get to that later. And we also have one of the these ladies on that creature as well. We'll get to that when I get to the Reaper man who rides on one. But they're just kind of cool, some undead-ass creatures. Like, you could have a Banshee screaming on her, I don't know what I'd call it, like undead horse as she rides across the glades at night, screaming while holding the heart of her latest victim. And then maybe the Reaper is the one who owns it, saying, bring me their heart so I can get their souls from it and not have to do the work of taking your prey. It's like maybe, I don't know, something like that. Some weird quest your group could go across. Now, the horses are pretty cool themselves. I do like the skeletal horses. Pretty nice and well detailed, too, for something of these old-esque designs. They do hold up pretty well, and I think they add a nice creepiness if you were doing a campaign similar to Ravenloft, where you need some creepy, screechy monsters to run the night. And going off on riders, we do have the creatures of Mage Knight riding on very crazy mechanical monstrosities. Here we have a humanoid riding on the back of a giant mecha, I want to call it spider, but it has only 6 legs, so we'll say mecha death bug, because it has a buzzsaw tail, giant spiked like mandible fronts, and then he holds a pickaxe. So he's obviously mining. This is most likely to be a mining tool, but think about it, if you turn it on a person, it's going to tear them apart really freaking quick, which is cool, and I like his design. Like, he's got like a strange, I think it's a crossbow. My bad. I thought it was a pickaxe. I just thought about that. No, it's like a crossbow. So maybe it's like a guard, and that is for its purpose. I thought he was a miner, but I'm like, maybe the other one had a pickaxe. But there's a couple of these I got too. They are a little bit more difficult as they only have like 4 legs that really stick. You can try putting some like glue on the other parts. And that's what I did. I just really glued them down and maybe touched up on their heads and stuff. They don't have too much wrong with them. They'd just be standard like guards of a city who ride on mechanical bugs, because it's just unique, different, and it adds a little flavor. Now here's the unique undead rider that I was talking about earlier. This is a skeletal Reaper man riding on the back of what looks to be like a zombified dragon or some type of specialized drake, like a mummified one, as he's wrapped in stuff and his skull is exposed. Now this is actually really cool. I could use this as like a head lich of the undead, or a special Reaper mounted, or like a undead drake mounted Reaper who the group maybe has to deal with because maybe he's trying to kill everyone and turn them into undead thralls, but he rides on this great dragon to just kind of show his authority. One of the Banshees did come with this, but unfortunately my wings that I got in the set were really off. I only had one of them that had I had 2 versions of the same wings, so I couldn't put it on her to have a Banshee of like, the queen level, his second in command at his call, which is a shame because I'll probably have to just turn it into like a ground drake, which is fine. Or maybe I'll put one wing and mess up the other one so it looks all beat up. I don't know. Something I might do to that in the future when I get time to work on it and maybe see what we can make. But these guys don't do that. They also do terrain, battle machines, battle like warriors, giant tanks. They make a lot of cool things. Like there's even a catapult. I do have it. It's unfortunately in my terrain box. I don't feel like digging through it. But it's a nice, lovely catapult that actually does, like, you know, you can flick it and all that, but it doesn't fire anything, of course. And there's like a little latch to hold it, which is funny. And it's cool because like a big old dragon, or like a monster skulled catapult on the front of the counterweight. And it's like, it's just cool. It's cool to see these sort of things. And you could use like the dial on it, I guess, for shots if you didn't want to use it for its actual stats. Because I don't know how to play the game, but I mean, these would be really cool, and you purpose them for D&D. They make some interesting models that your player's going to look at, scratch their head a bit, and go, huh, I read the manual. Monster Manual's been read by me, but I don't know what this is. Got him. Like, you got me. You got me, DM. It's like, darn right I do, so don't you think you're going to sneak and know the trick to beat this monster. It's just really cool. But they do also have humanoids, and this is the one humanoid I found for this type of game. Now, this is the one I actually bought when I first got that catapult. Before I ever bought any Mage Knight minis before, this is Mortis Draconum. Now, I actually got this from a cool, awesome card shop back in the day before it disappeared in the pandemic. They had these two sitting there, and they were like, oh, someone wanted to buy them, but it's been here for so long, we're just going to sell them. If you want them, you can buy them. And I think they sold it to me as like, for a set, they sold like $10. So, I mean, like, in the end, I probably paid, like, maybe if you had to compare the catapult being the more interesting object, and then little dragon man here, or draconian man here, I guess you'd say like probably like a 6 to 4, so like $6 for catapult, $4 for him. I think is what they kind of went with it for it, because he is pretty detailed. He has some stuff going on, but I mean, I don't play Mage Knight, so I don't know what his value is like in the Mage Knight rules. Is he amazing? Is he crap? I don't know, but it's cool to have like this big dragon like character, because you can use him as a draconian, which is something that's rare in D&D for minis, but it's cool to kind of have as an option. Or you could use them as some type of strange dragon monstrosity, as they have recently come out with like new things in the in Fizban's Guide to Dragons. There's like these Drago like golems and stuff. Maybe you could use this as like another version of the fully transformed, because he is quite big. As you can see on his little medium base, they're bigger than the D&D bases. But you know, you could easily put him on a large base, and you could say he's like, you know, ogre size or something like that. And it'd be kind of cool and interesting as he carries on this really gnarly dagger and has this sort of goat-like beard on him. Kind of unique and different, but is what it is. Now, what do I think of the Mage Knight as a whole? You know what, guys? I think if you were going to get them as supplements to your D&D game, they would be not too bad. There's, like I said, you have the tanks and stuff. They don't look too futuristic in the tank stuff. They look like more older school, older made stuff. So, like, a dwarf could make that. It's not like you're going, oh, what artificier could make this? My artificier could make that. You know, it's not rare. Like, we have just the skilled artificers enough. We have dwarves and stuff, you know, they make this. And it's like, oh, so, you know, it's not like you're trying to make like an Abrams tank exist in the D&D universe in the medieval times and have be like, don't see that really working, like crap. But, I mean, and they're not super expensive. A lot of these things are like, there's like deity tokens, and you got like big old constructs and tanks. You got other riders, characters. Stuff's still available, guys. You can still buy them on Amazon. You can buy them on eBay, and they're not too expensive. Sometimes they're even new in the box, so, you know, you're getting the brand newness of it. And they're just really cool, I think, if you want to add some flair to your games and something unique. Like I said, that Hill Giant was just amazingly unique. I mean, how many Hill Giants do you know that are going to walk around with dwarves or any race sitting on its shoulders and controlling its head like a horse with the little reins attached to its eyebrows, like screaming like, attack! Kill them, my giant, as they start shooting and gunning down from the sides. Like, it's just really cool. Like, I got to give Mage Knight credit. WizKids, I kind of wish you'd bring some of these designs over to D&D a little more on occasion, just to make things unique and different. Well, anyway, that's all I got for this. For Mage Knight usage in D&D, I think it's not a bad thing. I definitely recommend you give it a shot and convert and maybe repaint. Do what you got to do. Hey, guys, thank you for showing up for the video. If you have not done so, make sure you do subscribe if you haven't done so already. Helps the channel and helps support, you know, help it grow. And also hit that like button, or in this case, Mage smash that like button. So that way YouTube will hopefully put the algorithm out there, and, you know, we'll share this so more people can get this video, enjoy, and hopefully join my channel to enjoy the content. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, throw them in the comments down below, and I'll take a read and answer if you have any questions. Anyway, guys, I'll see you next time, and bye-bye.